Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. My name is Jonathan Dawson. The Italian theologian Leonardo de Chirico spoke recently at a conference held in Barcelona in honor of his Spanish counterpart, José Grau, addressing the challenge of contemporary Catholicism to evangelical faith. It's a subject which Grau himself has also studied deeply, producing what many would consider the definitive Spanish work on Roman Catholicism. As for de Chirico, his PhD at London University was on evangelical theological perspectives on post-Vatican II Catholicism. And his talks show that evangelicals must grapple with the Catholic system and must try to disentangle the real significance of Vatican II. From 1967 onwards, when that conference ended, Roman Catholicism stopped trying to dominate the world and denounce all it saw as wrong, and began, he says, to penetrate society and change it by infiltration. As Catholicism no longer carries the popular support it once did for its moral teaching, it seeks to absorb society rather than annihilate it. This revamped Catholicity is the ability to mix diverse ideas and values and movements and integrate them into its system. So, for instance, when evangelicalism says, as it did at the Reformation, Scripture alone, Christ alone, grace alone, faith alone, Catholicism adds tradition to Scripture, the Church to Christ, merit to grace, and works to faith. De Chirico also spoke about the theology of Cardinal Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict XVI, saying that he followed in the footsteps of the previous Pope, and, of course, in line with Vatican II. On his appointment, some applauded what they saw as his Bible centrality. But de Chirico says that this must be understood within the Catholic tradition of placing ecclesiastical tradition at least on a par with Scripture. He has the highest respect for church tradition, though trying to find new ways of articulating and living it. Well, in practice, Ratzinger believes church can only be church with a bishop around to preside. So, Christian groups who don't see the need for bishops aren't really churches and lack the full blessing granted real churches. In other words, those with a bishop in charge. The universal nature of the church means the union of all the bishops, led, of course, by the Bishop of Rome. So it turns out that, in fact, it's not just enough to have bishops. They must be bishops who recognize the authority of Rome. And finally, a church is only a church, says Ratzinger, when it celebrates communion properly. In other words, in the Roman Catholic way. That, of course, includes a belief in transubstantiation and in the sacramental reenactment of Christ's sacrifice on the cross. Well, therefore, the consequences for non-Catholic Christians are evident. Those who celebrate communion differently and with a different theology are not considered to be churches by Rome. They are euphemistically called ecclesiastical communities, and the only way they can become churches is to join the Roman Catholic Church. Therefore, any talk of Catholic ecumenism is a misnomer. And when the Pope speaks of ecumenism, he means everyone else joining his institution and entering into full fellowship with Rome. Therefore, it never ceases to astonish me, at least, how many Protestants, even some evangelicals, greet this desire so positively, when what it means is that they would have to submit totally to the Roman Catholic Church, the institution which, as well as having unbiblical theology, has over the centuries persecuted Protestants so mercilessly. Ratzinger sees Christianity as a coming together between biblical faith and Greek philosophical investigation. In his view, medieval Christianity saw the culmination of the synthesis between the Greek spirit and the Christian spirit, a rapprochement between the true Enlightenment and religion. Christianity, according to the pontiff, is the product of this convergence. Attempts to de-Hellenize Christianity are considered dangerous and mistaken by the current Pope, who sees the Reformation in this light. And the principle of Scripture alone has a negative connotation for him because it clashes with his deep convictions about the relationship between faith and reason. And in this sense, he is diametrically opposed to the classic Protestant understanding of the Christian faith. Well, in all this, the message for Protestants seems clear. Keep away from Rome, unless you want your theological and ecclesiastical fingers burned. Thank you for listening to Letter from England, broadcasting each week at emission.net. Goodbye.
Emisión.net